Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Soy Advisor. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, coming to you from West Central Illinois, Knox County. Let's share a quick update before we get another update from our soy envoys this week. According to USDA, planting as of May 5th progressed to 31% for soybeans, with the 5-year average at 30% and 12% emerged. Corn progress is at 32% for corn, with the 5-year average at 41% and corn emergence at 13%. Winter wheat headed is at 65%, with its 5-year average at 24%. Winter wheat condition was mostly rated at 60% good, 20% fair, and 13% excellence. So, given the latest USDA statistics that I just read off, do these trends align with what you're seeing in the regions, or are they better or are they worse? Let's go around the table. Craig, I'll have you start today.
Yeah, I was just looking at my network in Bayer and our field testing network, and we've got anywhere from Southern Illinois. We've got Evansville, Indiana, that does plant into Illinois quite a bit. They're 70% done. That's corn and beans, but then you've got other locations that have barely done anything. So it's a wide gamut across Illinois for us. Most of them are in that 30%, I would say, range. So it's not a great indicator of how everything else does, because sometimes we have to wait on some seed, and so we can't do everything we'd like to do. But I'd say that's probably what I would say is fairly close. Just driving around to comparing with what I see. I did take a trip to Monmouth earlier in the week, and it looked, Central Illinois all the way across the state looks fairly similar. Low areas are what I'm going to say is probably getting drowned out with all this rain that's came through now, and they're going to be at least a growth stage or two behind if it does come up. So variable fields, not a lot up. There is some up. It looks okay, but the higher ground looks better than the lower ground for sure in most every instance. Springfield area was very wet when I went through that area, a little bit east and a little bit west. Planters were rolling around Monmouth, but not much farther out than that. And then so it's just hit and miss wherever it's dry. Guys are going, and most of the dry fields have already been planted, so now it's those wet ones that everybody's waiting on.
I live just north of Monmouth. Monday night we got about 3/4 of the field done. Planter broke down, and then got half an inch of rain and went back in last night. So it's really a mixed bag, hit or miss. Get in while you can, but try not to push it too hard. Thanks, Craig. Eric, let's go over to you.
Yeah, kind of the same for us. Within the last day or so, especially the rain that just moved through yesterday, that kind of seemed to come along I-72, 74, and then kind of make a right-hand turn swerve yesterday. And so we ended up somewhere between maybe less than a tenth, all the way up to probably around a half an inch to that I-70 corridor down along the east side of the state. I would say we're probably close to being on par with the results, Kelsey, that you said for the USDA. We're getting a lot of corn up that's coming up. Some of the cornfields I was in yesterday, scouting, I was seeing some onion leafing, some unfurling out underground. So we had some reduced stands, and I'm attributing that to some of the cooler temps we had earlier in April. Some of that corn was planted around the 15th, and we were dealing with some pretty cool temps at that time. And thereafter too. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And I would say, as we're still making our pre-herbicide applications, don't hold back. Throw in the whole kitchen sink. Everything is coming up now. It seems like we used to think, especially in this part of the world, that water hemp didn't start emerging until the second or third week of May. Well, it was here the last week of April. So I encourage guys to stay aggressive with our herbicide programs and everything that we got going on, especially burn down. I continue to still get questions about burn down. And at this point, we're having to get very aggressive with some of our rates and applications and everything we're doing. So that's kind of an update on our side of the state.
Thanks, Eric. Kelly, I'll head it over to you. Who, before we start recording, I asked if you dodged the tornadoes. A lot of severe weather in Illinois, but also across the country.
Yeah, we had lots of. It was a fun day of tornado warnings all day long yesterday, but luckily I haven't heard of much of any damage and no injuries, so that's good. But um, wow, last night anywhere from a half inch to over 3 inches of rain across the region. 5 inches plus of rain since we talked last in some isolated areas. Um, Crop progress, boy, I was just looking at the board over here. I, I would say we're across our customer base, we're 50% planted, but um, that's not a good indication. Several people have not done a thing yet. I mean, there is nothing planted, and some are we're close to 2/3, 3/4 done. And I know from the text I got late last night, some of that went underwater. So we're going to be reevaluating a whole bunch of stuff here this next few days and into next week. Um, Wheat, a lot of diseases showing up in the wheat, even though it has been sprayed. We're well past flower now. Starting to see some heads turn yellow. Finally started to see a few heads showing up with freeze damage in them as we got past flowering. So I got that terrible feeling in the bottom of my stomach that we're going to be trying to finish planting corn, side dressing the early corn, cutting wheat, spraying beans, planting beans, all within the same 3 or 4 day window. The prevented planting date is really getting close to the county south of us, so that's the 31st of May. So I think we could maybe see some PP corn if this trend continues. I really do. I think we're the mood is there. Let me put it that way.
Kelly, real quick, while you're talking about wheat, I mentioned it's way ahead of its 5-year average. Does this affect timing with harvest, yield expectations?
Yield expectations from what we looked at, a week, 10 days ago, yield expectations are probably on par for an average, or maybe was on par for slightly above average. But like I said, we're starting to see a lot of leaf diseases come in, even where it was fungicided. So that's, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens there. The harvest timing, as warm as we've been and as dry as we've been, it's kind of been accelerated. So I think, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that, less than 30 days from now, I have to look and see when the full moon is, because that's um, generally when the early guys start that have dryers. So I got a feeling that it's going to be here faster than what we think.
Thanks, Kelly. Let's move from Southern Illinois up to Drew Beckman in Northern Illinois.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Apologize, I'm on the road again, but kind of, if we look at a territory as a whole, north of 80, Route 80 is getting rain again here this morning. I'm actually headed down to the Congerville area currently, and starting to kind of come out of the dampness where the rain was. There's a pretty stark line on who's getting rain this morning and who isn't. Overall, kind of according to those numbers, it's really hard to gauge, just because I've got operations that are done on corn and mostly done on beans, and then I've got ones that's similar story that haven't even turned a wheel yet or haven't even started yet. So I'd say it sounds about right, probably. It just doesn't feel that way when you're talking to multiple different operations overall. The northern part of the area has had quite a bit of time to run here recently. They were planting on Monday. Right in the face of that rain on Tuesday. Most of that area got about 3/4 of an inch out of that rain that came through on Tuesday. And the Peoria kind of central area that I cover, they've been sitting now for quite a while. They were able to go pretty well early. and get a lot of stuff done. They've been sitting now for, it feels like an eternity almost, without being able to run too hard, and we're going to see if that might flip a little bit today. I've been walking a lot of corn. Emergence on corn is very inconsistent. Kind of to some of the other points, that cold weather that we had from that mid to late April planting window is really leading to about a leaf spread between everything that we're seeing emerge. And what I would really encourage guys to do is to get out there and don't just try to row it from the truck, or don't just say, oh, it looks, walk 2 steps out in the field and say it's inconsistent. Start calling people, just, start digging a little bit and see what's coming, what's spiking right behind those plants that are about V2 or, V1 to V2. Because once you start digging, the overall, it starts looking a lot better. I'm very happy we haven't seen a lot of seed rot. I really have seen hardly any. Just a little bit of that that cold injury with the unfurling underground. So we are seeing that. Just maybe a 1 to 2,000 stand reduction there when looking at that portion of it. And then really, I would say if you're in a reduced tillage type situation, really get out there and check your planting depth consistency. I've been on several service calls now in different parts of the territory where we're seeing inner row inconsistent planting depth on corn, and it's seeming like maybe that upper portion of the soil profile was fit. It maybe wasn't fit down below, and we're seeing corn depth plant ranging from 1/2 inch to 2 inches within 3 plants of each other. So just a wide range of different things going on out here.
Thanks, Drew. We'll go back down to Karen and then Shelby, if you'll round us out.
We have had about 7 inches in the last 10 days, so we've never really gotten close to drying out. We have several ponds that seem to get bigger each time. The last rain I had was Tuesday. We had about 8 tons. We do have some soybeans that are popping up, but I would call them at the emergent stage. You can just barely see them. But I've had a lot of people call. We've had some issues. Cold, wet conditions are the absolute worst for crop safety when you have herbicides in the ground. So you need to go out and look and see what's going on. There's a lot of PPO damage in the beans. The PPO damage, those products are on the top of the soil, and when it rains, they splash up and cause contact damage on the soybeans. But you can also have issues with products like acetochlor, metolachlor. Clopyralid is really rough on corn if that's in one of your premixes. It's called stinger for a reason, because it can really sting the corn, especially in cold, wet conditions. So there has been, and there's going to be a lot of slowing down of how things are growing until we can get some heat so that the corn and beans can actually grow through the herbicide and metabolize it fast enough to get it going. I personally, in this area, have not seen any corn up yet. But again, we haven't really dried out in 10 days. So, but to leave on a positive note, today's the last day of class. So yay!
Yay, summertime. Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Good points there. Shelby?
Good morning. We are starting to dry out in our territory. We missed the rains late Tuesday and yesterday. We missed everything. There is a chance again today, but it doesn't look like we should get hammered too hard. We rounded out the month of April with about 3.5 inches or more in areas, and that was starting to make a lot of guys nervous. So there were still a lot of guys sitting. So right in our immediate territory, not a lot done right around Flatville, but if you get west of town and everything, there's a very large territory that is moving well. So I mean, in our immediate location, not much done, but we're okay with, I'm okay with that because we're headed into warmer conditions. I'm not afraid to get corn in the ground. It'll pop up quick. We don't want it laying in the ground for a long period of time. So at this point, if we can plant, corn will be up in 7 days or less, and I'm okay with that. So a lot of spraying going on because we can get some sprayers across the ground, which to me, this little later planting is sometimes a good thing because you can get a larger spectrum of weed control. You're getting controlling some of the earlier emergings, and now you're getting your better chance at maybe some water hemp control because we had such a bad control last year. So there's going to be a large seed bank out there, and hopefully we will be able to control a little bit of that since we have the moisture and we're getting a little later application. Hopefully we can control that a little bit better. But we've got a lot of guys that are getting very antsy, and I don't blame them. So it'll be time to go if we do miss this rain today. And I'd say by Saturday, there'll be a lot of guys rolling pretty hard. If not, the first of the week will be in a very good timely fashion to get rolling. So it looks like we have a good opportunity after this system moves through.
Thanks, Shelby. Some of you this past week have started to fill out crop reports, which if you're curious, you can go to illsoyadvisor.com, and under the Discover tab, there's the crop reports, and those are starting to trickle in. One thing I noticed there was there have been some sightings of bean leaf beetle. Anything else out there that you're seeing in relation to that? I'll open the floor.
We've got slugs showing up in the soybeans, especially in fields where they didn't get the slot closed.
I had slugs show up in my black cutworm moth traps.
Is anybody noticing a large amount of white grubs everywhere they dig? That's probably been the biggest thing that I've noticed digging corn with growers. There's just an abundance of white grubs everywhere.
Yeah, Drew, I was going to second that I'm seeing a lot of white grubs too down this way. I don't know if it has anything to do with this cicada emergence, but yeah, there's a lot of white grubs.
I just wonder if it's it's going to be an indicator of insects, with the bean leaf beetles kind of being the precursor, and then the white grubs. I don't know what is that, Japanese beetles, and I don't know what else those becomes of those, but could be an indicator of things to come.
We had a pretty mild winter, so there wasn't going to be a lot of population decline. So we're set up for whatever comes, unless we can get all the cicadas to eat them. So, but unfortunately, that's not what they eat. So
I don't think they eat that.
no.
We've had stink bugs here as well for quite some time, and I don't know if they overwinter in some of our, our stored boxes and stuff, if they're protected a little bit better. But a couple years ago when I went to the U of I Agronomy Day, one of the comments that was made by one of the entomologists is because of our milder winters that we were starting to have and still are continuing to have, that insects don't have to go as far south. So to overwinter, so they're showing up a lot sooner in territories because of these continued mild winters. So that's something to keep an eye on, that insects are going to start showing up sooner or not even disappearing from our territories because of these milder winters.
So to the point earlier as well, get out in the field and start scouting to analyze what's going on in that field. Also, Craig, I think you said there was some damaged seedlings due to herbicide injury, correct? You're seeing that, and maybe someone else mentioned it as well.
Yeah, Karen hit on it, and I think Drew or Eric was going to write up a blog on PPO damage. I think it was PPO damage because it's a planting date trial I was looking at in Monmouth, and the first date was damaged, and I thought it was a disease at first, just standing there looking, and then once I kind of walked around a little bit and looked at the second date, it looked healthy and fine. And then I was talking to the guys there at the farm, and they told me what had happened. I was like, okay. I started adding things up and getting a little history there, and I was like, okay, this has got to be a herbicide thing. So not really what I wanted to see in the planting day trial, but it was a good learning, and go to the crop reports to see more information or pictures on what that could look like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the corn damage that I was referencing earlier, I do suspect that it probably was some herbicide injury, probably compared because there was some group 15s. Acetochlor wasn't in the mix. That was going to be my first kind of go-to, but knowing I got a little bit of information while we were getting started here that that wasn't actually the culprit. But so mainly I'm going to be looking at, it was cold temperatures, and then probably, just having to grow up. And like Karen said, corn plants or soybean plants, they've still got to metabolize the herbicide, even though they're tolerant of it. They've got to metabolize it, and when it's cold and wet, it takes a lot longer.
Also talking about cover crop termination, we've still been getting some reports. I've seen some things on social media that cover crops are still slow to terminate right now due to the cooler nights. Anything you're hearing out there in relation to that?
One thing that I've come across lately is I was just talking with one of our crop specialists, and I've also seen it personally, but some of these cover crops are maybe terminated a little bit later, maybe a little taller than we would have liked, just simply because of where we're at in the growing season with weather, and then think about how good a fall we had in relationship to how early they were seeded. That some of these cover crops, especially cereal rye, I think we're seeing some responses to tillering where we had a good intended application, but because of how tall some of the stuff was, it was actually starting to tiller. So there was some of that stuff that was down lower that we actually didn't get killed. And so we're going to have to try to maybe do an early post application on maybe some of our soybeans to get the final stand of cereal rye under control. It's just simply because of probably a coverage, most likely a coverage issue, even though we were using systemic herbicides like glyphosate.
I've had some issues where it was the mixture that they had in their tank mix. They were seeing burn before they got to the end of the field because they had put MSO in with metribuzin. This was on the Iowa-Illinois line, and so the rye burned before the glyphosate ever got into the plant, and so it didn't control it. So it doesn't look sick. I mean, it looks sick, but it's not dying off. So you need to be very careful about everything you try and put in a mix, and make sure that your adjuvants, are compatible with all of the products that you're putting in. And remember, a lot of your pre-emerge products, if you don't have weeds up, those adjuvants aren't as important. But anytime you use higher end adjuvants, you can really mess up how well your Roundup or glyphosate works. So really think about what you're putting in your tank to make sure that you can get good control and that you're not antagonizing within your own mixture. So think about those things before you spray them out onto the field, because that's really showing up right now.
Just seeing if anyone else has to add. I will say my final question, and then if you guys have anything else you want to bring up. So hearing today a mixed bag of sorts across Illinois, some going, too much rain. And I know we've been saying the past couple weeks, stay patient. Is that patience now officially running out? And it's maybe not panic time yet. I know you said early June, but what is your message to farmers that are looking at their field, they're looking at the seed in the shed, haven't started, maybe they've started a little bit, more rain in the forecast, and then maybe a window appears and they want to try it, but what's the risk versus reward of maybe pushing the envelope a little bit?
I was going to say, one of the things I've been preaching very hard to our customer base the last week is, number one, if you've already got chemicals, herbicides especially, applied to a field, you need to take note of what those are. And so, because the first inclination down here will be, well, that's dry, I'm going to switch that from corn to beans or beans to corn. And so that's a disaster in the making if you don't remember what you've sprayed where or don't know what you sprayed where. Secondly, the tendency is going to be, yes, to push it. So even the most patient of farmers will start to push it, in the next 7 to 10 days. And so again, know where you can and where you can't push it. There are certain places, certain fields, certain soil types where you can get by a day early. Almost all ours down here, you can't get by 2 days early. So just know. And then I have encouraged all my customers to to do two things while we're rained out. And one is to take their supplier to lunch and to talk to them and say, hey, here's what we're going to have when we go. Are you going to be able to deliver or not? And the other one is to take their crop insurance agent to lunch and go over their coverage one more time.
Sounds good.
And agree with Kelly there. Even the most patient guys are going to run out of patience, but still be prepared. And I mean, don't push the envelope to the point where you're going to create mohawk roots in corn or you're going to have poor emergence. Take your time and do the fields that you feel are fit, and that that even if you get a rain on it, they're still going to be in a good place. So don't do something that you're going to regret later. But be considerate of where you're headed. I had a guy call yesterday and he's like, can I switch to corn from beans? I'm like, we've been missing these rains. We haven't been getting real heavy ones this last couple of days. And the way it kind of looks is that's the way it's going to trend. So yes, if you have a field that is fit and ready, I'm not afraid for you to go plant corn. Don't get carried away, but if you're confident with where you're headed, be in a good place. So still be patient and just check the soil before you go to the field. Go out there, dig around, make sure it is fit, and if it's fit, then be confident in what you're doing.
I'll just second everything, or second or third everything that's been said too. And I also champion that plan that we came up with, say last fall, or even winter when we were doing prepays and stuff. Just think about how long it took for us to get to that plan. And just remember, our first plan is always going to be our best plan because we've had enough time to think about it and plan about it. And so we are, at least in Central Illinois or East Central Illinois, we're still in a position that our first plan is still going to be our best plan, even for a couple weeks yet. So it's not time to hit the panic button by any means. Those full season hybrids that you may have picked out that you haven't planned yet, or those full season bean varieties, those are still going to be our best choices when we are able to start running again. And as far as playing that game of switching things, from all my experiences working in agriculture, whenever we hit the panic button and we start switching to lower maturities, that's when we really start sacrifice yield, because there's a reason why we chose those, and that's to maximize our growing season and to capitalize on yield for our maturity groups we have for whatever zone you're at in Illinois.
I'll just say that, make sure the soil conditions are fit, because at this point in time, you don't want to have to plant twice. So keep that in mind and wait for good conditions, especially for corn. Soybeans can be a little bit more marginal, but with your corn, you really want to give it its best chance. Otherwise, it's better for it to just stay in the bag, as hard as that is. And I honestly really hate summers where I turn into a grief counselor instead of an agronomist. And we're kind of teetering on the edge of that, but we don't want to do anything now that we're going to regret if we turn off dry. You can hide a lot of mistakes if you continue to get the rain, but we don't have control over that. So you want to do things the best you can the first time so that things don't compound and make it worse and worse depending on how the weather goes throughout the season.
Also, don't forget to get out of your planter tractors once you're in a field. Go out, check your depth, check how consistent you are. Don't just set it the morning in one field and then get to the third one and think that it's going to be the same, because we're seeing a lot of variability with that, with some of the conditions we're going in, fields being a little different. So obviously third and fourth, most of everything else that was already said. But that would be my little thing, is that, check it before you go to the field, but also don't forget to check it while you're in that field.
Yeah, I would just echo what Karen said. If you screw something up, you're going to spend the rest of the year trying to fix that, and it's a lot of wasted time on probably one of your lower productive fields, and that's really not where you want to spend your time. So try and do it right the first time. But yeah, they hit it well.
Yep, great points, everyone. Thanks again for coming on Thursday morning, our regular Thursday morning podcast. Get updates, very informative across the state, and Going in the future, if you are traveling, or I know in the western part of the state, let us know how things are going there. And if you're listening to this, feel free to message us to let us know how crop conditions are where you are. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.